Okay, I got to cut this nut in half. I'm going to cut it through the widest part. That's the tip on each side here. Before I get started, I'm going to make a little mark on here. I would normally do this with a marker, but I can't find one. And that'll just remind me which way it's oriented originally. So when I cut it, they can both go the same way. So I'm going to use a grinder. It's got a zip cut blade on here. Yes, I've got no guard on here, but I recommend that you do that. You know, you want to be safe. I've got eye protection on. You can't see it, but I do. And I'm going to get ready and cut this. So I'm going to flip it over and cut the other side. And make sure that the piece is well clamped in a clamp that can hold it, that can actually hold it. This one's really good at that. And that you clamp that clamp down. If you can put this in a vise, that's even better. I have a word about what I'm doing here. You might see I'm rocking back and forth here. What happens when you're cutting through a steel with one of these abrasive blades is it's wearing through the metal, and what it does is heats up the metal a lot, and not just what's being cut but ahead of it too. So if you get heat buildup ahead of it, what happens is that metal kind of resists being cut. So the best way to efficiently cut through this kind of metal, steel, or any kind really, is to make sure that you're moving your blade around a little bit so that you're not building up heat ahead of the cut. And that's the reason why I'm rocking it back and forth like that. That's it, it's cut. And that's it, it's cut cleanly through. This is pretty hot, so let it cool down before I do the next operation. The next step is to cut a notch in these parts for the nut to fit in. Now, it's got to be about 3/4 of an inch deep. That's half the actual thickness of the nut from side to side. That's not allowing for this cut here. What I want these parts to do is to close together tight like this when the nut's around the rod. So what I'm looking for is the actual thickness of the nut, width of the nut, before I cut it. So that works out to be 3/4 of an inch. So I've got my sliding table set up to make these cuts. These could also be made on a sled. I wouldn't recommend doing it any other way than this. I'm not using a dado blade. I just don't want to go to the trouble of setting it up here just to make these few cuts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make these cuts singly. I've got a mark put here for the leading edge, and I'll move it over 1/8 of an inch at a time, cut the parts out until I get to the end, which is another mark right here, and that should leave me with the distance that this nut fits in tightly. Both pieces have to be the same, so hopefully the nut's a good fit, and it is. It's just a little slack, that's okay. Because this is going to get glued in here. And I can see that it is the right depth. It should be just below the surface of these. Like I say, these parts are going to come together tight, but these nuts still need the space between them that was cut out with the zip cut blade. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut the other part. So I've got both of them notched out. I've got the nut put in here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a mark inside here. I don't know if you can see it easily on the camera. Around the inside of the nut, in as far as I can reach with my, mechanical pencil. And what that'll do is, I've got this measurement with SketchUp, and basically where the tip comes, I need to make a couple of 45-degree cuts to cut out a V shape through this. And where it lines up in SketchUp is right on the face of this, and I just want to make sure that that's what it actually is. So you don't need a whole lot of fancy layout tools for most operations. What I'm going to check this with, I just cut a piece of scrap, thin piece of wood on my miter saw at 45 degrees. So I can use that, put that in there, line it up with the arc of that cut, and draw a line down to the bottom. So this is where my cut needs to be. And it looks like it actually does line up exactly with that. So I'll do the same from the other side. You won't be able to see it, but you've already seen basically what I'm doing. And what you wind up with is a 45-degree cut that'll come up and be level with the bottom of this notch, just as predicted on SketchUp. So I'm going to tip my blade and set the saw to cut out this material in here on both pieces.